With endless articles and documentaries about the greatness and achievements of the Islamic Empire, such as this one written by a well-known TV personality and academic, the title "The Age of Brilliance." It is difficult to see if there were not other great empires that made contributions to human civilization. Nor do these articles consider the factors involved in Islam's rise or tell the full story of what or who actually contributed to world civilization or which one of these Muslims did, as there were many competing Islamic caliphates and schismatic Muslim groups that were vying for power at the same time, shown here. Some were in favour of pursuing non-Islamic knowledge such as the sciences, technology and medicine, whilst others not so much. So the term Islamic Empire or Muslim Caliphate is not monolithic as these articles make out when it comes to some of the positive contributions. Nor does it mention where that information actually came from. In the case of Islam and Muslims, it was mainly from the Greeks and Persians. Examples of this have been provided in previous videos. In addition, the next series of videos aims to do exactly that. Nonetheless, this article states for a period stretching over 700 years, the international language of science was Arabic, the language of the Quran. Going on to laud the Islamic world's achievements. The full link is below. Not only were there other great empires before the rise of Islam, far greater, such as the Greeks, who have been mentioned before, and their influence upon Islam. There is another one that Islam benefited from immensely, this being the Persian Empire. The first iteration of the empire is also known as the Achaemenid Empire, where it was at its greatest territorial extent under the rule of Darius I, also known as Darius the Great. It was the largest empire the world had ever seen at its time. They built many new roads, and in terms of their brilliance, a concept that is taken for granted nowadays. As far back as 500 BC, owing to its success militarily for a millennia, it systemized its military by possessing a national army of thousands of troops which were divided into regiments. More information can be found in this World History Encyclopedia article and in numerous scholarly journals. Unlike Islam, the Persian Empire, even at the height of its powers and strength, especially under Cyrus, was a tolerant one. He showed mercy toward the cities and kingdoms he conquered. He was known to spare the life of defeated kings and practiced religious and cultural tolerance toward the conquered people. Going against the convention of the time, he got rid of slavery by freeing enslaved people. An example of this is when he set the Jews free from their Babylonian captivity and facilitated their return to Israel. He also helped them build the Second Temple in Jerusalem by financing it. These actions earned him to become a notable figure in Jewish scriptures as a savior. He also established the first record of human rights edict called the Cyrus Cylinder, currently housed in the British Museum. More on its content and significance will be covered in detail in a future video. From the long list of firsts in this National Geographic article, it describes the Persian Empire as history's first superpower. It also mentions how before Alexander the Great or the Roman Empire, the Persian Empire existed as one of the most powerful and complex empires of the ancient world. In this article from the Smithsonian Magazine, it describes such was the power of Persia that in the classical world its powers rivaled Greece and Rome, going on to say it influenced and was influenced by the traditions of Greece and Rome. It also dominated ancient Egypt. Cyrus's son Cambyses II, who ruled from 530 BC, became the first Persian pharaoh in the year 525 BC, when he was victorious at the Battle of Pelusium, the first major battle between the Achaemenid Empire and ancient Egypt. The Persians won by engaging in the world's first psychological warfare. He also sent an envoy to the various Arabian kings asking for safe passage through the region under his dominion. Thus Cambyses made a major contribution to diplomatic relations by establishing the world's first known ambassadorship. This video by the channel History Explained explains more on Cambyses' life and his achievements in more detail. The link is below. Contrary to articles such as these about the Muslim claim on how the world's first university was founded by Muslims, and that being by a Muslim woman in 859 AD. As seen in a previous video, supported by peer-reviewed journals and academic studies, it was in pre-Islamic Persia where the first university was founded nearly 400 years earlier, which went on to hugely contribute to medicine, technology and sciences. Incidentally, the Muslims destroyed the university not before it was exploited and benefited from it immensely, then went on to propel its own golden age, coincidentally which only occurred within a certain Islamic caliphate located geographically within Persia, as opposed to other Islamic caliphates before or contemporaneously who did not advance to the same extent. Some evidence of the former claim about the first university being in Persia was covered in a previous video, and for the latter claim of only a select Muslim group or caliphate excelling in the sciences, evidence will be shown in a subsequent video. The other first, and of its brilliance, given how long it was developed, something described as not short of a miracle in this article by UNESCO, is that they invented a unique type of wind power machine called aspad. The Britannica mentions some of the earliest known windmills are to a Persian millwright in 644 AD. In these reputable sources, it mentions how they developed the world's first postal service. It was also the first of the world's empires to emerge in the ancient Middle East, and were the first people to establish regular routes of communication between 3 continents, and therefore were the first to unify several people and cultures into one large heterogeneous state. Its architecture amongst the world's heritage sites and so on. In another article, it mentions some of the other firsts, such as the Persian Empire standardizing taxes and currency. There are too many achievements to name. The links to the articles are provided for further research. Another first is that the Persians had the first monotheistic philosophy in Zoroastrianism, which was the official religion of the empire. Unfortunately, as history has shown time and again, as soon as Islam arrived on the scene, although it borrows heavily from Zoroastrianism, it soon went into decline. This is explained in this article found in the British Library website by Oxford University educated SOAS Professor of Zoroastrian Studies, Dr. Helmut Hintze. As Zoroastrianism is the world's first monotheistic religion, it inspired other religions such as Judaism, a religion that later influenced Christianity and then Islam. This is cited in numerous studies, including this one submitted as part of a PhD dissertation to the University of California. It says Zoroastrianism inspired a unique form of religious and racial toleration as opposed to the political rivalries attributed to belligerent city-state gods. Going on to say, quote, although Zoroastrianism endured a sharp and dramatic decline after the Muslim conquest of Iran, its legacy lives on. This legacy has been unjustly ignored by historians of political ideas. It played a major role in the development of numerous cultural philosophies, and it had more influence on the history of human religion than any other faith. In this BBC article talking about Zoroastrianism, it says the obscure religion that shaped the West. It is said to have inspired great philosophers, suggesting that what many take for granted as wholesome Western ideals, beliefs and culture may in fact have Iranian roots. Going on to say it introduced to mankind its first monotheistic faith. Here is another article that says Zoroastrianism was a key influence on both Christianity and Judaism. Quote, its teachings and mythology heavily influenced the Judeo-Christian tradition, leaving a legacy lasting thousands of years. End quote. So by extrapolation, it stands to reason that this would also include Islam as another religion influenced by Zoroastrianism, as Islam itself was influenced by the former two religions. So in conclusion, numerous articles and documentaries boast about Islam's contribution to world civilization, without ever mentioning why one group of Muslims excelled over another, or how they themselves were benefited from and were influenced by former religions, cultures, and empires. These documentaries and articles have a tendency to whitewash history in favor of Islam in a generic way. Rather, it was the Greeks and also the Persian Empire who had a significant impact on Islam and its thought, without which the so-called misnomer of Islamic Golden Age would never have developed. In regards to Islam, in other words, its core sources and apologists never credit these other great civilizations. Instead, it takes all the credit for itself and incorrectly attributes its advances and achievements to Allah, Muhammad and Islam. The Persians were a greater empire. They accomplished feats that were only imitated by certain groups of Muslims centuries later and built upon. There were many firsts within the Persian Empire. At its height, it rivaled Greece, Rome, and Egypt. The Persian Empire's contribution to world civilization is immeasurable. The coming of Islam on the scene was disastrous to it. From the acts of destruction of the Gondishapur University, the actual first university in the world, to the despoliation of its architecture, to suppressing its ethic of learning, philosophy, tolerance and innovation, to subverting its history, religion and culture via a systematic series of suppression and subterfuge, to the widespread propaganda of claiming another's achievements as its own without giving credit to the source is nothing short of dishonest. This and many other iniquities of Islam, humanity and civilization as a whole has never fully recovered from.